Hello, thanks for selecting this training. This training is on substance abuse awareness and identification training. It's for our managers and supervisors here at Goodwill Industries. Any employee who is a lead or above should receive this training. Please make sure to write down any questions that arise, so after the training you can email them to your supervisor and the HR department for clarification. If you do have questions once that email is sent and you seek the answers, please make sure that you understand them. You will receive an acknowledgement after taking this training. You will be required to print off that acknowledgement, print your name, sign your name, and date it. Make sure to send that original document to the HR department for your employee work file. This is a mandatory annual training. All of our policies are located on Goodwill's Internet SharePoint. If you look on the left page of your screen, you'll see the SharePoint address right there at the very bottom. So let's get started. Almost everyone wants to feel healthy and safe and productive. Viewing the issue of alcohol and other drug use as part of the bigger picture of overall health and safety can be an effective way of meaningfully reaching nearly all of our employees. After all, drug use may affect what happens in the workplace, whether it takes place here or outside of work. In addition, drug use often goes hand in hand with other health and mental health issues. People who are depressed may turn to stimulants. People who are anxious may turn to depressants. People under tremendous stress may misuse substances. Broader approach to improving their own health and their well-being. Drug and substance abuse is escalating in the workplace. It's imperative that managers and supervisors know what to do if they suspect an employee is under the influence. Please make sure that you follow through this presentation and learn what your responsibilities are. Training goals here today are to make Goodwill a safe and drug-free workplace, to identify what the costs are associated with substance abuse to employer, employee, and society, what is substance abuse are abused, and how to identify the different types of substances that are abused, and to learn and understand what Goodwill's policy and procedure for dealing with substance abuse is. At the end of this training, supervisors should understand the different components of the drug-free workplace policy, the supervisor's role in implementing the drug-free workplace policy, identifying and investigating crisis situations, recognizing workplace problems that may be related to alcohol and/or other drugs, and how to intervene in problem situations. Goodwill will not tolerate the illegal use of drugs and/or alcohol from our employees, participants, or our customers. This policy applies to all Goodwill employees. Our objective is to establish and maintain a safe workplace. All employees are responsible for following all Goodwill work rule and safety rules, and for observing the standards of behavior that Goodwill coworkers and customers have the right to expect from us. This policy and its rules apply whenever an employee is on Goodwill property, to include the surrounding grounds, our parking lots, owned or leased spaces, on Goodwill time, including lunch and meal periods, and any vehicle used on Goodwill business, and in any other circumstances we believe may adversely affect our operations, safety, Goodwill's reputation, or the administration of this policy, including on our customers' premises, business, or conferences, and when you're representing Goodwill Industries. We employ a zero-tolerance policy pertaining to alcohol and/or drugs in the workplace environment. Please look in your employee handbook for more information or on our internet site and/or possession of narcotics, drugs, manufacturing chemicals, or related paraphernalia is strictly prohibited. Alcohol is strictly prohibited on Goodwill property and during Goodwill operations, as well as on Goodwill time. Violations will adversely affect employment with Goodwill. When investigating a potential crisis involving possible drug or alcohol use, there are a few important questions to ask. Does there appear to be unusual behavior taking place? Is there illegal activity or policy violations? What specific behavior is visible? Does the situation involve an individual employee or a group of individuals? Are reliable witnesses available? What are the physical dangers of taking or not taking action? Is the situation serious enough to call your department director, HR, or law enforcement? Is there a specific policy that applies to the situation? Does the situation call for reasonable suspicion testing? Is this an opportunity to prevent a problem from escalating? Documenting observations and responses is important. It can help to have another supervisor there as well. Goodwill will request that an employee who appears to be under the influence of drugs or alcohol submit to appropriate tests, including urine analysis, at an approved facility. Tests can be administered for reasonable suspicion, post-accident, vehicle or otherwise, safety-sensitive positions, and pre-employment testing. The Department of Transportation, or the DOT guidelines. There are certain employees performing safety-sensitive functions, including truck drivers or driving staff, will be subject to DOT testing guidelines. They define safety-sensitive as an employee working in a position that performs functions which hold an adverse safety impact to our population. Goodwill will also initiate the following guidelines for all applicants in safety-sensitive positions. A pre-employment testing. It will be a condition of employment. The individual must have a confirmed negative drug test. Also, we are required to obtain substance abuse history from previous employers per DOT testing. Random testing. Individuals are subject to random and unannounced testing throughout the year. It is the supervisor's responsibility to ensure the employee being tested shows up at the approved facility. For our DOT testing guidelines for truck drivers, we have the minimum annual testing rates on this slide. If you are a truck driver or supervise truck drivers, you will receive notification from the HR department who, where, and when needs to go for this testing. We will also test for post-accident. Any employee involved in an accident will be subject to drug and alcohol tests as soon as possible following the incident. You should call your direct supervisor, department director, or the HR department as soon as possible. For your protection, please don't drive until you have been tested. For the DOT guidelines, it is recommended that alcohol tests should be administered within 2 hours, but no later than 8 hours. And for controlled substance testing, it should be administered within 32 hours following the incident. Please don't delay. As soon as the incident happens, call your supervisor. For reasonable suspicion, this occurs due to an employee's work performance or on-the-job behavior. It can be based on specific events or observations. The observations could be his or her appearance, behavior, or odor. Step 1 is to identifying the employee. Most concerns that employees under the influence often come from another coworker or even clients or vendors before it's noticed by a supervisor or manager. You do not want to send an employee for testing based on hearsay or gossip, but you should document the complaint or concern from the coworker who brings this information forward. Take a few extra minutes to ask what the employee observed, when it was observed, and if other witnesses were present or commented on the situation. You will also want to know if this is something that has happened in the past, if it's a pattern of behavior, or if it's a new behavior. Step 2, observations by management. First-hand observations should be made by 2 members of management. Immediately upon notice of this type of concern, the supervisor or available manager, or if you're in the downtown location, HR personnel should go to this employee's work area for first-hand observation. They may be able to observe the employee from afar, but usually will want to talk with the employee directly to observe any smell of alcohol, eye dilation, slurred speech, or other behaviors. Step 3, observations by another individual. The manager or HR person who performed the initial observation should seek a second member of management to confirm the initial suspicion. The second observer should perform his or her own first-hand observation of the employee. Step 4 should be documenting. Both observers should clearly document their observations, including any abnormal behaviors. You want to be as specific as possible in your description, but please don't attempt to diagnose a situation. For example, an observation should include things such as odor. Is there a smell of alcohol, body odor, or urine? Some movements. Are they unsteady, fidgety, or dizzy? Their eyes. Are they dilated, watery, constricted? Is a person's face flushed, sweating, confused, or do they have a blank look? Is the employee's speech slurred, slowed, distracted? Do they have an inability to verbalize their thought? Emotions. Is the employee argumentative, agitated, drowsy, or irritable? What are their actions? Are they yawning or twitching? And any inaction. Again, testing for alcohol should occur within 2 hours. The supervisor should keep documentation of how and why the determination was made. Please email that or fax it to the HR department. Supervisor must explain the reason for the suspicion to the employee. Step 5, you're going to want to assess the situation. After the situation has been clearly documented, you'll need to assess what you know and observe to determine the next step. If both the observers witness behavior that creates a suspicion, the documentation supports this, then proceed with speaking to the employee. If there is a disagreement, you may need to bring in a third party to also observe and help make a determination. You may decide that you don't have anything that leads you to a reasonable suspicion of use of drugs or alcohol outside of an employee's complaint. You don't want to send an employee for testing unless you have a documented concern that supports a reasonable suspicion. Again, for DOT testing, they want you to do the drug testing within 8 hours of the determination. If the test results are delayed, the employee should not be allowed to return to work until the results have come back. You as a supervisor are responsible for transportation to the proof testing facility. If the test is inconclusive, the employee is not allowed to drive him or herself home. Step 6, meeting with the employee. You're going to want to meet with the employee and a witness. Often the meeting includes the employee, supervisor, a second supervisor, or the HR department. Bring the employee into your office with another supervisor present as a witness. You want them there for support. Always maintain confidentiality and conduct the meeting in a private setting. Inform the employee that you will be taking him or her in for a reasonable suspicion test. During this meeting, you should clearly explain what has been observed or documented by management. Then explain that in order to rule out the possibility that the employee is in violation of company's policy pertaining to drugs and alcohol, you'll be sending him or her for a drug and alcohol test. Explaining in this manner shows the employee that you haven't jumped to any conclusions, you're just following procedure. If the employee is not under the influence of drugs or alcohol at work, the test will prove this. Make sure that you listen without reacting or interrupting. You may hear anger, denial, blaming, hysterics, or you may receive no reaction. Make sure that you ask and don't accuse. Always manage yourself. Stick to your objectives, keep listening, and above all, don't be drawn into attacks and defenses. If the drug or alcohol test results are negative, please return the employee to his or her job. If applicable, this may be the time to address personal hygiene issues with the employee. An employee who fails to cooperate in the administration of this policy by refusing to consent to testing, to submit a sample, or to sign any required forms, by refusing to cooperate in any way, for example, refusing to courteously and candidly cooperate in any interview or investigation, including any form of truthfulness, misrepresentation, or anything that's misleading with their statements or omissions, any form of dishonesty in the investigation or testing procedures, including switching, altering, or any way tampering with the requested sample, or otherwise attempting to manipulate the testing process, or refusing to test again at a time of Goodwill's choosing whether any test results in a finding of a dilute sample, or testing dilute on any requested retest after initial dilute request result, will be in violation of several work rules. Here are a few of the work rules the employee may be in violation of. Number 56, failure to comply with positive fail results to a reasonable suspicion drug or alcohol test and or retesting as a dilute specimen after initial dilute test result. Number 64, violation of the drug and alcohol policy. And number 68, failure to comply with supervisor's reasonable orders and or being insubordinate. Work rules are located in the last few pages of the employee handbook. If an employee's tests come back positive, if a pre-employment applicant's tests come back positive, they will be denied employment. Random and reasonable suspicion test positive or inconclusive results in at least a 3-day suspension following investigation, and it may also result in termination. You do not want to allow someone you suspect of being under the influence behind the wheel of a car. Therefore, you should ensure the employee does not have to drive to the testing center or back home afterwards. Escort or have another supervisor escort the employee to the collection facility. If the employee is not allowed to drive him or herself, remember, if an employee is unsafe to work, he or she is surely unsafe to drive. If you're not comfortable riding with the employee alone, please make sure you have somebody else in your vehicle with you. If the employee refuses a cab ride, a ride home, or attempts to drive home after inconclusive or positive test, never attempt to physically restrain the employee. Take note of the employee's type of car and his or her license plate, and contact the authorities to report their concern that the employee is driving under the influence. This policy exists to protect secrets, maintain product quality and Goodwill's integrity and reputation, and of course to comply with the Drug-Free Workplace Act and any other state, federal, or local laws. So what is substance abuse? Using a substance to modify or control mood or a state of mind in a manner that is illegal or harmful to oneself. Some of the potential consequences of abuse could be accidents or injuries, absenteeism, legal problems, poor job performance, family problems, STD, and addiction. Recent government studies have shown that employees impaired by drugs and alcohol are 3 to 4 times more likely to be injured on the job. They also cause 40% of all industrial fatalities. They cause 47% of all industrial injuries. They also file 3 to 4 times as many sick-related claims and are approximately 35% less productive. Also, they increase risk. People who abuse drugs or alcohol are 3.5 times more likely to be involved in a workplace accident, resulting in increased worker compensation and disability claims. Also, other workers suffer. 1 in 5 workers report being injured or put in danger on the job because of a coworker's drinking or drug use, or having to work harder, redo work, or cover for a coworker as a result of a fellow employee's substance abuse. Also, more than half of working family members of alcoholics report that their own ability to function at work and at home was negatively impacted by their family members' drinking or drug abuse. Adult workers with a substance abuse disorder miss an average of 45% more days a year than employees without substance abuse disorder. Employees who use drugs are 500% more likely to file a workers' comp claim, and medical costs are 300% higher for drug users versus other employees. Some of the commonly found or abused drugs are alcohol, marijuana, methamphetamines, prescription drugs, cocaine, opiates, PCPs, and hallucinogens. Let's break these down a little further. Some of the indicators of alcohol abuse are excessive or abnormal workplace accidents, behavior exhibiting mood swings, reacting inappropriately to stressful situations, expressed depression, odor, poor motor or mechanical functions, deteriorating job performance, and problems with personal and social relationships. For marijuana, Some of the indicators are impaired motor mechanical senses, odor, red eyes, or lowered inhibition. For methamphetamines, some of the indicators are exhausted appearance. For decision making, the employee may be jittery, may exhibit moodiness, may have rapid weight loss, can appear anxious and restless. For prescription drugs, some of the indicators are employee may be constantly popping pills. He or she may have impaired motor mechanical senses. There may be anxiety or restlessness. You may see expressed depression. He or she may have slurred speech, and there could be increased tension. For cocaine, some of the indicators here are dilated pupils, chronic fatigue, extreme anxiety and excitability, rapid breathing, increased pulse, and profuse sweating. The employee may have bleeding or damaged nasal passages. For opiates, the indicators of this drug are euphoria, followed by drowsiness, an increase for pain. He or she may have slow brain activity, and they could have impaired motor or mechanical senses. For PCP and hallucinogens, some of the indicators here are an altered state of consciousness, disorientation or confusion, predictable, bizarre, or violent behavior, extreme agitation, impaired motor or mechanical sense, and depression. Now let's talk about the role of the supervisor. As a supervisor, it's your responsibility to maintain a safe, secure, and productive environment for all employees, clients, and vendors. Evaluate and discuss performance with your employee. Make sure that you treat all the employees fairly and act in a manner that does not demean or label. Some of the social behavior indicators are substance abuse. The employee may be more or less social. There may be a noticeable change in friends. He or she may have wage garnishment by creditors. Coworkers may start to complain. The employee may have anger outbursts towards authority figures, or he or she may display an overreaction to criticism. Some of the personal health indicators could be a noticeable appearance or changes, signs of nervousness, depression, or emotional symptoms, jitters, hand tremors, or hyperexcitability, impulsive or temperamental behavior, mood swings followed by breaks. He or she may have personal hygiene changes. There may be a pattern of unusual illnesses, and he or she may start displaying secretive behavior. Some of the work performance indicators could be frequent tardiness following his or her breaks. The employee may have frequent trips to the restroom or the drinking fountain. There may be noticeable confusion or difficulty completing complex tasks. The employee may become accident prone and have repeated safety violations. He or she may refuse to accept authority. There may be constant violation of Goodwill work rules. There may be a lack of concentration, decreased productivity. He or she may exhibit fatigue or erratic judgment. Sending for testing. Know and understand what Goodwill's policy of substance abuse is. Learn the signs and symptoms of substance abuse. Document all cases of performance deterioration. Obtain observations from other supervisors or peers. Make sure that you consult the Human Resource Department and your direct supervisor. HR will either fax the appropriate document to the manager or the test site. Do not accuse the employee or diagnose the situation. Make sure that you're understanding and listen to the employee's concern, but don't accept his or her excuses. Also explain the employee's role and their responsibilities for their behavior changes. The following are recommended actions that supervisors should take when you're going to confront a possible drug or alcohol situation. Ask the employee to come to a private area with another supervisor or the HR department. Inquire about the behavior, rumor, or the report. Inform the employee of your concerns and that you will be taking him or her to a reasonable suspicion test. Get the employee's explanation of what's going on, and if you feel there is a problem, make sure that you notify your direct supervisor and the HR department. If there is evidence or suspicion of a recent use, and based upon the employee's response in drug-free workplace policy, the supervisor should escort the employee to a collection site for a reasonable suspicion test. If it's the weekend, a mobile test site will be required. Escort the employee to the collection site for the drug test. Remember, if the employee is in no shape to work, he or she is in no shape to drive. The employee needs to know what to do and what to expect. Goodwill does not want an employee to return to work until the test results are available. Place the employee on a suspension until a formal investigation takes place. Arrange for the employee to be escorted home. You, the supervisor, must arrange for the employee to be escorted home. If the employee refuses and drives his or her vehicle, call 911. If you make observations regarding the legal distribution, possession, sale, transportation, or manufacturing of a controlled and dangerous substance on work property, contact local law enforcement. These situations usually result in a uniformed officer responding to conduct an investigation, or make an arrest. Make sure that you prepare the report. Due to the limited resources of most local state law enforcement agencies, they may not conduct a lengthy undercover investigation. As always, immediate action should be taken if safety is an issue at work. Remember, as a supervisor, it's not your responsibility to diagnose any drug or alcohol problems. You also don't need to have all the answers. Also, please don't provide counseling or therapy for the individual. And remember, you're not a police officer. Do emphasize that you're only concerned with the work performance and the employee's conduct. Do have documentation or performance in front of you when you talk with the employee. And do remember that many problems get worse without assistance. Meanwhile, don't try to diagnose the problem. Don't moralize. Limit your comment to job performance and conduct issues only. Don't discuss alcohol and or drug use. Stick strictly to the topic of performance. Don't be misled by sympathy-invoking tactics. And don't cover up. If you protect people, it enables them to stay the same. And finally, don't make threats that you do not intend to carry out. If you threaten disciplinary action, you need to follow through. As you go about your supervisory duties, always remember the following as critical steps towards a safe, drug-free workplace environment. Identify and investigate crisis situations. Recognize workplace problems that may be related to employee use of alcohol or other drugs. Intervene in problem situations. Refer employees who have problems with alcohol and or other drugs. Protect employees' confidentiality. Continue to supervise employees who have been referred to assistance related to problems with alcohol or other drugs, and avoid enabling and other common supervisory traps. Goodwill strives to build a drug-free workplace by equipping you with the tools and information to effectively address drug and or alcohol problems. Please be aware, Goodwill's policy and employees that may be having a difficult time. A drug-free workplace can reduce drug abuse and other problems as well, and it can help all employees from the top to the bottom. A drug-free workplace should be a workplace that is free from the use of illegal drugs, but a drug-free workplace policy and program can also increase morale, boost productivity, and reduce workplace stress, creating a positive, dynamic community that is safer, happier, and healthier for everyone. I hope this presentation has shed some light on the value of a drug-free workplace and the role that you as a supervisor can play in achieving them. Thanks for your time and attention today. Remember, additional information on the Drug-Free Workplace is available on the U.S. Department of Labor's Working Partners for Alcohol and Drug-Free Workplace Program website. If you have any questions, please make sure to contact your supervisor, department director, or the HR department. You'll also need to send an email to the HR department and your direct supervisor, letting us know that you've taken the training and that you will comprehend the information. You will receive an acknowledgement after that email that you will need to print off, print your name, sign your name and date, and then send the original to